How's it going, folks? I'm Adam Brian Dada, and this is the Lower Reward video series. Today, the discussion starts with a question from a long-term supporter who's been debating a lot of my points for many years and has only recently decided to come into the fray because of these videos. Their question is, what is the difference between lower reward living and being a monk? And it's actually a great question, one that I had difficulty answering for many years. But here we go with this beginning of the discussion. What is the difference? The big difference is that lower reward living isn't no reward living or zero reward living. Many monks in their monastery want to have no joys, no pleasures, no personal gains, no profits. Whereas the lower reward producer gets the benefits from both angles, something that nobody else that I am familiar with promotes online or in books or education form. The lower reward producer gets the profits from the means of production, meaning financial generally, but also the network contacts, the social gains from being a producer. So they get the profits, which a monk definitely does not. But the lower reward producer gets an even better feeling of success and winning because they've conditioned their brain to not need extreme feelings of winning in order to get that smile or that validation. Starting on the path to lower reward living definitely feels like monk mode to most people, but I hate that term. I don't like monk mode. I'm never asking people to shut everything down. When I mentor people, I tell them, don't try and make everything lower reward right away because you're going to fail. You became a high reward consumer because of slow conditioning from childhood, from birth. The first things that children are handed today are high reward conditioning products, whether it's plastic toys or cute videos for tots on YouTube, or even an iPad that parents cheer when the kid is able to make choices or selections. These are all high reward conditioning tools designed to create consumers. I said in a prior video about back to school sales, and it's all high reward conditioning that starts at a young age. Oh, look, I'm getting a shiny glitter pencil case with cartoon characters on it. It's high reward conditioning. It takes a long time to create a consumer. Many businesses, when they run marketing and advertising, lose money on the first sale. I've had businesses where the average first sale is $33, but it cost me $50 to get a customer in the door. $50 spent on ads before one person walks in the door to buy $33 retail, which means I probably made $9 profit. So I need them to come in the store 5 times to break even. Consumers take a long time to condition. Undoing the consumer mind also takes a long time. And you don't do it in big steps. You don't dive in and say, I'm going monk mode. I'm going to stop porn, and I'm going to stop Netflix, and I'm going to stop pot, and I'm going to stop staying up late, and I'm going to stop Facebook. Doesn't work. You can probably go a month, 3 months with none of that stuff, but you're going to fall right back into place as that mindless consumer because you've been conditioned for 10 years, 30 years, 50 years. The producer mindset takes time, but the benefits are visible and viable in as little as 2 weeks, which is why I created the 2-week self-study. A monk plans their whole life to remove that conditioning, to break off their consumer mind. But their goal isn't to be a profitable producer. I tell a lot of people that I loved a good cocktail, and I liked action movies, and I loved driving fast. But as I conditioned myself to be that low reward producer, I now get the same feeling from much less because my brain is sensitive to small amounts of dopamine, whereas the consumer brain is not. The consumer brain needs tons of it, and when you remove that joyful occasion, they feel depressed, anxiety, or boredom, or a combination of two of the three. Whereas the low reward producer feels pretty darn good with the little successes, so when the big successes come randomly, they don't become addicted to it. There's a reason so many wealthy celebrities are losers. They have a lot of money, but they don't have contentment. And that's because they never broke their consumer-minded behaviors. They still love brand seeking. They still love fast, expensive cars. They still love their porn and their drugs and their fancy drinks. And they never got a chance to break it off. And when they do try it, it's always rehab. The worst situation and solution for a consumer addict is rehab. Cut it all off and put you in an environment with people who are doing everything they can to get a fix. Terrible. The lower reward video series is about slowly and patiently coming up with a solution to breaking yourselves of the bad habits while still allowing yourselves those bad habits as rewards, as successful milestones. When you reach a goal, you can treat yourself with something a little more exciting. If you didn't reach a goal, you can understand that performing those consumer habits is going to distract you from the motivation you need to reach those goals. The monk doesn't set goals and options like the producer does. We aren't only focused on one long-term result, whether it's sinfulness or sinlessness or piety or any of that stuff, going to heaven. Our goals are to make our day or make our life better today than they were yesterday in some measurable way, but it doesn't have to be significant. When I started my t-shirt business that I was relatively well known for years ago, I was happy when I made $1 of profit in the beginning because it was $1 I didn't have before. And people laughed at me saying, but you made $1,000 of profit in your previous business. Well, that's correct, but I had grown tired of a business that I felt no longer had a market long term, and I wanted to do something new. So by making $1 profit, slowly, I had conditioned my brain to the small wins. Eventually, I sold that business for a big profit, and those profits allowed me to spend more time doing the things that I like to do, the so-called passion projects, as poor people call it. I just call it something to do. I don't have passion projects. I have options for things that I want to do with my time. And that only came from the two-sided coin of low reward producers. The one side of the coin is I don't need as much excitement to feel joy. And the other side of the coin is I have many options for outcomes that will feed me that contentment and that validation and ultimately some amount of joy. So I don't need much to feel joy, and I have many options for joy. And those options aren't porn and Netflix and fast food and professional sports and 4/4 meter music that sounds like every other 4/4 meter music. No, I have goals that involve me taking risks and investing time and potentially money. And I have goals that are about gaining a profit on the backs of the mindless consumer who's going to throw their money away anyway the minute it hits their bank account and drive themselves deeper into debt. I have goals that don't require a diploma or an education. Many of these goals don't even require the ability to do math or read well or write well. I have goals that would work for anybody of any race in any income level community, immigrant or born citizen, doesn't matter. I have these goals that anyone could have, but I'm able to reach out for them because I'm putting my brain in a slightly less impatient, slightly less bored state. And those little states are not monk mode. While you're reaching for your goal, reaching to create those options, what you are actually doing is slowly unwinding the consumer mindset, little bits at a time. You're not completely cutting it all off. If you still want to have a beer, have a beer. If you still want to smoke weed, smoke weed. If you still want to partake in porn, partake in porn. But when you have that moment of boredom or that moment of anxiety or that moment of depression, you are now training yourself to understand that those things happen because you hadn't tasted real success. You've only consumed artificial success that some smarter, more patient producer than you has created for you to consume. Whether it's watching a sports game of your favorite team, or whether it's watching a movie where the good guy wins, or whether it's checking out some porn where the handsome, biologically impossible man gets the girl, someone more patient than you has created artificial success, and your brain feels like it's the one that did it. A monk feels no success. Many of them feel like they're constant failures. The same is true in these rehab clinics. People who feel like they're constantly failing. And I don't think addiction is a failure. I think it's a mental illness that can be healed with understanding the values that humans have had for tens of thousands of years, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. Those values being survival, those values being capitalizing on areas of abundance in your life, those values being gaining yourself a foothold in a highly competitive environment, and eventually winning at the things that you wanted to win at. But again, not necessarily winning at the ultimate goal, but winning at one of the options that you had set for yourself as an acceptable win, among many other options. As you progress down the low reward path in little steps, telling yourself it's okay to celebrate after little wins with a little celebration, you will find your mind is conditioning itself. It's more capable of turning boredom into motivation instantly with just a simple change of thought. You're capable of pushing away anxiety because you're using your brain to prove that survival is constant. It's always there. And you're beating off depression because you're not hyper-polarizing your brain into these massively joyful, well-produced, mindless consumer forms of entertainment. When you dig into success, you're also giving yourself the celebration goal. You're not just saying, I'm free of addiction and I'm free of those areas of my life that controlled me. You're just slowly reducing them. You're slowly breaking free of them. So the big difference, as we see, between lower reward producerism and being a monk is that it's okay to profit. It's okay to celebrate. It's okay to wallow in whatever activity you were feeling guilty about before, because there is no sin in those activities. There's just, is it a reward for good behavior, or is it done because you are allegedly bored or full of anxiety or full of depression? I'm Adam Brian Dada, and this is the Low Reward video series.